The 2-year contract was finally up. $10 million. The final payment. My dream of kicking back and doing absolutely nothing for the rest of my life was so close I could taste it. But Victoria Sterling, my Ice Queen CEO wife, was dragging her feet on signing the divorce papers. When I finally cornered her, she just pointed to the 2-year-old she was holding, her supposed niece, and said, "You want a divorce? You'll have to ask our daughter if that's okay with her." I laughed. This was clearly her sister's kid. Then she threw a paternity test on the table. I stared at the conclusion. Paternity established. My brain short-circuited. I swear on everything holy, in 2 years, I hadn't so much as held her hand. The contract had expired a month ago. For one entire month, my wife in name only, Victoria Sterling, hadn't said a single word about the divorce. I was starting to panic. 2 years ago, Ethan Hayes was just another broke college grad. But because my horoscope was supposedly perfect, or my aura was strong, or some other new age nonsense her eccentric grandfather was into, I was handpicked to enter into a contract marriage with his granddaughter, Victoria. The deal was simple. For 2 years, I'd be her husband on paper. I'd play the part to get her family off her back and keep unwanted suitors at bay. After 2 years, we go our separate ways. I'd walk with $10 million, and we'd be free to live our own lives, no strings attached. $10 million. I'd done the math. I could stick it in a high-yield savings account, add it to my meager life savings, and as long as I wasn't an idiot, I'd have enough to find some quiet little town in Vermont and just exist blissfully until I was old and gray. It was my ultimate life goal. And for that dream, I diligently played the role of a trophy husband for 2 straight years. My daily grind consisted of playing video games, cooking, and waiting for Victoria to come home. She was a world-class workaholic, always wearing that permanently frozen, Arctic expression. She was either in a meeting or on her way to one. We lived under the same roof, but the total number of words we'd exchanged probably wouldn't fill a page. Our marriage was as platonic as 2 cucumbers in the same crisper drawer. Now the 2 years were up. My glorious, lazy future was right there, and she was playing dumb. I couldn't wait any longer. That night, for a change, Victoria got home on time. She slipped off her heels, tossed her ridiculously expensive Hermes bag onto the sofa, and rubbed the bridge of her nose, a rare flicker of exhaustion in her eyes. She was holding a little girl, cute as a button, with rosy cheeks. Chloe, her sister's daughter, 2 years old, who'd been staying with us recently. I took a deep breath, mustered my courage, and walked over to her. Ms. Sterling. She lifted her gaze, her eyes as cold as a February wind. What is it? Our contract expired last month. I rubbed my hands together, trying to keep my voice even. I was thinking, when would be a good time for us to get the paperwork finalized? And don't worry, after the divorce, I'll disappear. I won't cause you any trouble. Victoria didn't answer. She just looked down and started cooing at Chloe, who giggled and reached up with her tiny hands to grab at her hair. The silence was excruciating. I felt like a debt collector. Except the debt I was collecting was my own freedom. Victoria. I couldn't help it. My voice got sharper. What's going on? You're not trying to stiff me, are you? It's in black and white. $10 million. I want every cent. That finally got a reaction. She looked up, the corner of her mouth curling into a smirk I'd never seen before. A divorce? Phoenix. She held Chloe out toward me. First, why don't you ask our daughter if she agrees? My brain buzzed. Daughter? Whose daughter? I looked at the little girl smiling giddily at me, and I could feel my CPU starting to overheat. What kind of joke is this? Chloe is your niece. Your sister's kid. What does she have to do with me? I scoffed, figuring the woman was willing to say anything to get out of paying me. My sister. Victoria's smirk widened. When did I ever tell you I had a sister? I froze. Come to think of it, she never had. A twin sister, she added nonchalantly, as if commenting on the weather. I was even more lost. What the hell was happening? Stop messing around. I forced myself to calm down. It doesn't matter whose kid she is. She's not mine. Let's just sign the papers. I'll take the money, and we can both move on. That's what matters. Whether she's yours or not isn't up to you. Victoria reached in her purse on the sofa, pulled out a file folder, and tossed it onto the coffee table in front of me. See for yourself. Hesitantly, I picked it up. The bold letters on the cover hit me like a punch to the gut. Paternity test results. My heart hammered against my ribs. I flipped to the last page, straight to the conclusion. Based on analysis of the DNA genetic markers, Ethan Hayes is not excluded as the biological father of the child, Chloe. Probability of paternity, 99.9999%. The world went dark for a second. I swayed on my feet. The report slipped from my trembling hand and fluttered onto the rug. I stared at Victoria, a rock lodged in my throat. This is impossible. Absolutely impossible. I'd never even held her hand. How could I have a daughter out of thin air? It defied science. Victoria stood up, holding Chloe, and looked down at me with an infuriatingly smug expression. What's the matter, Mr. Hayes? You'd hit it and quit it, but you won't own up to it. When did I ever hit? When did I? I was shaking with anger, unable to form a complete sentence. We've been nothing but roommates. For 2 years, I've slept in the guest room. You've slept in the master. There's a whole living room between us. I couldn't have sleepwalked that far. Oh, she raised an eyebrow. Think back. 2 years ago, the night we signed the contract. At the Velvet Rope. You really don't remember anything? 2 years ago, the night we signed the contract. The memory hit me like a freight train. I'd just been dumped by my girlfriend of 3 years. Her reason? I was too unambitious. A deadbeat who couldn't give her the life she wanted. I went to a bar and got completely, utterly wasted. I think. Yeah, I definitely blacked out. The next morning, I woke up in a hotel room. Next to me was... Wait, no one was next to me. Only the Sterling family butler, standing by the bed, respectfully handed me a contract. Could it be? My head snapped up. I looked at Victoria, pure horror washing over me. It was you. Victoria, holding our daughter, grinned like the cat that ate the canary. So, still want that divorce? I looked at her, then at Chloe, who was now curiously chewing on her own tiny fist. My dream of doing nothing. My $10 million. My carefree, ambitionless life. It shattered into a million pieces. I locked myself in the guest room and didn't sleep a wink all night. I replayed that night over and over in my head, trying to find a single clue in my fragmented memories. It was useless. My memory of that night was like a photograph someone had tried to erase, leaving only blurry smudges. I just remembered downing drink after drink, the lights strobing, the music deafening. As for what happened after, how I ended up with Victoria, I couldn't remember a thing. I yanked at my hair, feeling like I'd fallen into a massive, elaborate trap. Victoria Sterling. That woman was a calculating fox. She must have planned this from the very beginning. That paternity test had to be fake. Right, that had to be it. With today's technology, faking a lab report would be a piece of cake. She was just using a fake kid to weasel out of paying me the $10 million and keep me trapped by her side as her convenient shield. The more I thought about it, the more certain I was. No, I couldn't just sit here and take it. I had to fight back. I would get my own paternity test done. I'd expose her lies with cold, hard facts. A spark of hope ignited inside me. With my mind made up, a new problem arose. How was I going to get a sample of Chloe's DNA without anyone noticing? Hair? Fingernails? Or maybe a used pacifier? I cracked open my door and peeked out. In the living room, Victoria was holding Chloe and watching the morning news. The nanny, Maria, was busy in the kitchen. Chloe had her dark, soft hair tied up in 2 little pigtails. They looked so pluckable. No, that was too violent. I'd scare the kid. Then I saw it. Chloe was gnawing happily on a teething toy. It had to be covered in her saliva. The perfect sample. I immediately formulated the highly sophisticated Plan A. As soon as Victoria left for work and Maria wasn't looking, I'd use playing with Chloe as an excuse to get my hands on that teether. My chance came quickly. After breakfast, Victoria slipped on her heels, transforming back into the formidable CEO. I have a meeting in the city today, so I won't be back tonight. Chloe's in your and Maria's hands. Before she left, she gave me a long, meaningful look. Be a good father. I sneered internally. Just wait until I get my evidence. We'll see who's playing games then. The moment Victoria was out the door, I shot out of my room. Maria, let me play with Chloe for a bit. You go take care of your other things, I said, plastering what I hoped was my most charming smile on my face. Maria gave me a surprised look. In 2 years, I had barely interacted with Chloe, always maintaining a safe uncle distance. Well, all right, Mr. Hayes, just keep an eye on her. Don't let her get hurt. Don't you worry. I puffed out my chest, my eyes locked on the teething toy in Chloe's little hand. Chloe was sitting on the rug. When she saw me, she broke into a wide grin, showing off a few tiny teeth. Uh? She babbled. A weird feeling twisted in my gut. Stop calling me that. I'm not your dad. I crept closer, like a wolf stalking its prey. Chloe, come here. Let Uncle give you a hug. I held out my arms, and Chloe, to her credit, obliged, throwing her own little arms open and toddling toward me. I scooped her up, my other hand stealthily reaching for the teether. This was no fun. Let Uncle get you a new one. Ipaida fingus. I hadn't expected the little girl to have such a strong grip. She held on for dear life, refusing to let go. Wah! Her little face scrunched up, and she let out a piercing wail. The sound was so earth-shattering, it brought Maria running from the balcony where she'd been hanging laundry. What happened? What's wrong? She cried, rushing over. I was frozen, holding a bawling Chloe, the teether still clutched in my other hand. It was an incredibly awkward scene. I was just playing with her, I explained with a dry laugh. Maria eyed me suspiciously, then looked at the sobbing child. Her expression was filled with distrust. Mr. Hayes, Chloe's still very young. Please don't frighten her. Of course not. I just wanted to look at her teething oof. Before I could finish, I felt my hand go empty. With the speed of a striking viper, Maria snatched the teether out of my hand and tossed it straight into the nearby trash can. This one's dirty. Time for a new one. She pulled a brand new teether from a cabinet and placed it in Chloe's hand. Chloe immediately stopped crying and went back to chewing. I stared at the trash can, at the teether covered in all my hopes and dreams, and my heart bled. Plan A was a catastrophic failure. After the failure of Plan A, I didn't give up. I quickly devised Plan B. Target, Chloe's hair. This was a higher difficulty mission. It required surgical precision. I spent a few days observing and discovered that Maria took Chloe to the community park every afternoon to get some sun. That would be my window of opportunity. On a sunny afternoon, I geared up. Hot, face mask, sunglasses. I was covered from head to toe, looking like a B-list celebrity trying to dodge the paparazzi. I skulked behind Maria and Chloe. The park was busy, mostly grandparents with their grandkids. Maria set Chloe down on a patch of grass to play and started chatting with a few other older women nearby. This was it. I pulled my hat down low and casually ambled near the patch of grass. Chloe was crouched down, completely absorbed in studying an ant. Her little pigtails bounced with every movement, like two black butterflies. My heart pounded. My palms were sweating. I pulled a small pair of scissors from my pocket and crept closer. 10 feet, 5 feet, 3 feet. I crouched down, my hand trembling as I reached out. Just as the scissors were about to snip that precious lock of hair. What do you think you're doing? A booming voice erupted behind me. I jumped, and the scissors clattered to the ground. I turned to see a formidable-looking woman, built like a linebacker, glaring at me. She was one of the ladies Maria had been talking to, creeping around like that. What are you trying to do to that child? Are you a kidnapper? Her shout drew the attention of everyone in the vicinity. Maria whipped her head around. When she saw my get-up and the scissors on the ground, her face went pale. Mr. Hayes. No. I was sweating bullets, trying to explain, but not knowing where to start. I couldn't exactly say I was trying to snip the kid's hair for a paternity test, could I? They'd think I was some kind of freak. Don't even think about running. The woman grabbed my arm with a grip of steel. Somebody call 911. We got a kidnapper here. A crowd instantly swarmed around me, pointing and muttering. Look at these young people today. Dressed so nicely, but doing things like this. It's terrifying. Trying to snatch a kid in broad daylight. Get him. People like that deserve a beating. I was trapped in the middle of a mob of righteously indignant senior citizens, unable to defend myself. My life was over. I just wanted a peaceful retirement. How did I fast-track to life in prison? This was, without a doubt, the darkest, most humiliating moment of my entire life. Just as I was about to be drowned in a sea of spit and accusations, Maria finally snapped out of her shock. It's a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding, she yelled, pushing her way through the crowd. This is the man of the house. He's the child's father. Maria clearly hesitated before saying the word father. But in this situation, it was the only thing to say. Everyone froze. Father? The woman holding me was skeptical. What kind of father dresses like that and sneaks up on his own daughter with a pair of scissors? Do you think we're stupid? Yeah, he doesn't look like a good guy. Maria was on the verge of tears. It's true. He's really her dad. He was just trying to play a game with her. Role-playing. Role-playing? Role-playing as a creepy kidnapper. I could feel my toes curling in my shoes, trying to dig a hole to China. Mister, hey, say something. Maria pleaded with her eyes. What could I say? I pulled off my mask and sunglasses, forcing a smile that was more painful than a grimace. Hello, ladies. I am indeed her father. Work has been stressful lately, in my mind. It's not all there. Just wanted to experience a different kind of life. Please don't mind me. My explanation was pathetic, but it seemed to sow a seed of doubt. Finally, after Maria's repeated assurances and my endless apologies, the crowd slowly dispersed. I trudged home behind Maria like a defeated rooster. The moment we were inside, Maria clutched Chloe tightly, looking at me as if I were a threat to national security. Mr. Hayes, what on earth were you trying to do? I sighed. I knew I couldn't hide it anymore. Maria, I just wanted to get a strand of Chloe's hair. What for? She asked, her eyes narrowed. As a keepsake. I lied terribly. Maria obviously didn't buy it, but she didn't press the issue. She just took Chloe into her room and locked the door. I collapsed onto the sofa. Plan B, another spectacular failure, with a bonus round of public humiliation. Why had my life become so difficult? After 2 failures, I decided to change my strategy. A frontal assault wasn't working. It was time for some good old-fashioned subterfuge. I spent a whole day Googling various methods for discreetly obtaining a DNA sample. From toothbrushes to hairbrushes, from water cups to half-eaten apple cores. I finally locked onto my target, Chloe's baby bottle. Every night before bed, Chloe had a bottle of milk. If I could just get my hands on her bottle after she was done, the nipple would be a perfect ready-made sample. To execute Plan C, I did something unprecedented. I volunteered for the fatherly duty of giving Chloe her nighttime bottle and putting her to sleep. Maria still looked at me with suspicion, but Victoria was out of town, and she was swamped. She reluctantly agreed. At 9 o'clock, I prepared the bottle and sat on the sofa with Chloe in my arms. The little girl seemed to have forgotten the trauma in the park that afternoon. The moment she saw the bottle, she opened her mouth wide with excitement. As I fed her, anxiously monitored Maria's movements. She was in the kitchen washing dishes, the sound of running water covering my activities. Perfect. I watched Chloe gulp down the last of her milk and let out a delicate burp. Suppressing my excitement, I gently patted her back until she fell asleep in my arms. Then, I carefully placed her in her crib. Now for the most critical step. I picked up the still warm bottle, my heart thumping. I pretended to walk toward the kitchen to wash it. As I passed the living room trash can, my hand slipped and the bottle fell to the floor. Oops, I exclaimed dramatically. I quickly picked it up, and in one fluid motion, I unscrewed the saliva-coated nipple and stuffed it into my pocket. Then, I tossed the naked bottle into the kitchen sink. Maria, I put the bottle in the sink. Okay, came her voice from the kitchen. Feeling like a master thief, I snuck back to my room, sealed the precious nipple in a Ziploc bag, and hid it under my mattress. The whole operation was smooth, seamless. I was a genius. The next morning, under the guise of going out for breakfast, I took the Ziploc bag and headed straight for the most reputable DNA testing lab in the city. To ensure the accuracy of the results, I painfully plucked a few strands of my own hair. I need this rushed, the fastest possible results. Of course, sir. The report will be ready in 3 days. The next 3 days were pure agony. On one hand, I couldn't wait for the results, to slap that report on Victoria's desk and see the look on her face. On the other hand, I felt a strange sense of dread. What if? No what ifs. I, Ethan Hayes, was an upstanding citizen. I couldn't have possibly done something like that. Victoria didn't come back during those 3 days. But her parents, my nominal in-laws, did. They showed up unannounced. Oh, my sweet granddaughter. Grandma missed you so much. The moment she walked in, my elegant mother-in-law swept Chloe into her arms and covered her in kisses. My usually stern father-in-law even cracked a rare smile, pulling a thick envelope from his pocket and tucking it into Chloe's hand. I stood there awkwardly, not knowing what to do with my hands. Mom, Dad, what are you guys doing here? I forced myself to greet them. We came to see Victoria and the baby. What? Are we not welcome? My mother-in-law shot me a sidelong glance. Of course not. Welcome, welcome. I plastered on a smile. Where's Victoria? At the office again? That girl just doesn't know how to balance her life. My mother-in-law began to complain. I could only nod in agreement. Ethan, Victoria is busy with work. You need to take on more responsibility at home, my father-in-law said, patting my shoulder paternally. A man's priority should be his family. What could I say? I just kept nodding. By the way, when are you two going to have a wedding ceremony? The child is already 2. You can't just leave things ambiguous forever, my mother-in-law suddenly asked. A wedding? I nearly choked. We were on the verge of divorce. What wedding? I shot a desperate look at Maria. She pretended to be intensely focused on dusting a table. Mom, we talked about it. We're going to do it as soon as Victoria finishes this big project she's working on. I lied through my teeth. Good. My mother-in-law nodded, satisfied. You young people have your own ideas, but you can't neglect the child. You need to get her birth certificate sorted and start looking at schools. I felt a massive headache coming on. After what felt like an eternity, I saw them out. I was completely drained. This trophy husband gig was exhausting. On the 3rd day, I was up at the crack of dawn. I skipped breakfast and took a cab straight to the lab. My hands were shaking as I picked up the envelope. I couldn't bring myself to flip to the end. I read it page by page, word by word. I didn't understand any of the technical jargon. I took a deep breath, squeezed my eyes shut, and flipped to the final page. Then, slowly, I opened them. Conclusion. The alleged father, Ethan Hayes, is not excluded as the biological father of the child, Chloe. The world spun. How? How could it be the same result? Could it be that I really became a father without even knowing it? I stumbled out of the lab, clutching the thin piece of paper that felt as heavy as a block of lead. The sun was blinding, but I felt a chill run through my body. When I got home, Victoria was there. She was sitting on the sofa, calmly sipping her coffee, as if she had been expecting this all along. Like an enraged bull, I charged over to her and slammed the report down on the table. Victoria, you owe me an explanation. What the hell is going on? My eyes were bloodshot. Victoria put down her coffee cup, picked up the report, and glanced at it without a flicker of surprise. She looked up at me, and for the first time, I saw a complex emotion in her eyes. It looked like pity mixed with a hint of resignation. All right, she sighed. Since you went to the trouble of finding out for yourself, I'll tell you the truth. I sat across from Victoria, feeling like a prisoner awaiting his sentence. The truth is, Chloe is your daughter. Her first sentence extinguished the last ember of hope I had. But, let me finish, she cut me off. I clamped my mouth shut, my fists clenched. And Chloe is not my child. Her second sentence made the last taut string in my brain snap. Not her child, then whose? She is my twin sister's child. Veronica's. Victoria's voice was soft, but it landed like a thunderclap. A twin sister. She really had a twin sister. I racked my brain, but all I knew about her family was her grandfather and her parents. I'd never heard of a sister. Don't lie to me. Your family records only list you as a single child, I retorted. It was something the butler had shown me when I signed the contract. That's because my sister was sent abroad a long time ago. She's not registered here, Victoria explained calmly. Her health has always been poor. She's been receiving treatment overseas. I was skeptical. Then, how did she and I asked the million-dollar question. It was 2 years ago, the night we signed the contract. Victoria's gaze drifted, lost in memory. My sister had just returned to the country. She was in a bad state and went to the Velvet Rope to drink alone. And you were there, drinking your sorrows away after being dumped. What happened next was an accident fueled by alcohol. My heart sank. Could it really be that I got so blackout drunk that I, with a total stranger, and that stranger just happened to be my future contract wife's twin sister? It was more ridiculous than a soap opera. Then why did I wake up the next morning to your family's butler, signing a contract with you? I pressed. Because the next morning, my sister got a call from her hospital abroad. Her condition had relapsed, and she had to fly back immediately. She couldn't face you. She didn't know how to handle it. so she asked me for help. Victoria looked at me, a trace of apology in her eyes. She said, "You seem like a good person." She didn't want to ruin your life over an accident, but she also didn't want her child to be born without a father. So she begged me to use the contract marriage to keep you around, to let the child grow up, at least in the presence of her biological father, even if you never knew the truth. My mouth hung open. I was speechless. The information overload was staggering. So, I've been a dad for 2 years. The mother of my child was my wife's twin sister, and my wife, for her sister's sake, had put on a 2-year-long act just so I, the father in name only, could be near my own daughter every day. This was insane. My entire worldview had been repeatedly crushed and ground into dust today. Then why are you telling me the truth now? I asked weakly. Because my sister is coming back. Victoria dropped another bomb. Her condition has stabilized. She wants to come home. She wants to meet you. And she wants to take Chloe back. My head snapped up. Take Chloe back. My heart, without any warning, clenched painfully. Even though I had just found out Chloe was my daughter, even though I had been fighting this fact with every fiber of my being, hearing those words, take back, I felt an overwhelming sense of loss. For 2 years, that adorable little girl, though I had intentionally kept my distance, she would always toddle over to me on her chubby little legs, hug my leg, and call me uncle in her sweet, milky voice. She would stuff her favorite cookie into my hand. She would climb onto my back while I was playing video games, watching with curiosity. She would poke my cheek with her tiny finger when I pretended to be asleep. All these moments flashed through my mind. So that was it. That strange feeling of connection. It was blood. So, you're saying when your sister gets back, we get divorced, she takes the kid, I take the money, and we all pretend this never happened? I asked, my voice hoarse. Wasn't that my original dream? Get paid, retire. So why didn't I feel happy at all? In theory, yes, Victoria nodded, but there's been a complication. My stomach dropped. I knew it couldn't be that simple. The Van Cess, our family's biggest rivals, somehow got wind of the situation. They know about Chloe. They think she's my illegitimate daughter, and they're about to use it to launch an attack on Sterling Corp's stock price. Victoria's face hardened, her Ice Queen persona returning. The company is at a critical juncture right now. We can't afford any negative press. So, she looked at me, her gaze a mixture of a plea and a command. I need you, Ethan Hayes, to continue playing the part of my husband and Chloe's father, at least until this crisis is over. I stared at her, saying nothing for a long moment. My mind was racing. My dream of a lazy retirement had vanished like a popped soap bubble. In its place was a daughter who had fallen from the sky, a baby mama I'd never met, and a ruthless corporate rival lurking in the shadows. My life had just switched genres. From a slice-of-life comedy about a slacker, it had turned into a primetime drama mixing family secrets, corporate warfare, and a healthy dose of mystery. I took a deep breath and looked at Victoria. What's in it for me? Victoria blinked, then a smile touched her lips. Besides the 10 million, I'll add another 20. Deal. I agreed without a moment's hesitation. Are you kidding me? $30 million. Forget playing a fake dad. For that much money, I'd go full-on father of the year. I'd take Chloe to the park and let her break bricks on my chest for an audience. Retirement is important, but money is importanter. After accepting my new mission, my life changed dramatically. First, I moved from the guest room into the master bedroom. In Victoria's words, we had to make the act convincing. If her parents or Maria found out we were sleeping separately, all our efforts would be for nothing. The master bedroom was huge. It even had a small sitting area that separated the bed from a sofa. I picked up my pillow and blanket and dutifully headed for the sofa. You sleep in the bed. Victoria's cool voice came from behind me. I paused and looked back at her. Is that appropriate? It's fine. The sofa's too small for you. You won't be comfortable. As she spoke, she picked up a light blanket for herself and walked to the sofa. I'll sleep here. I looked at her, curled up on the couch, and felt a pang of guilt. But then I remembered she was the client who owed me $30 million. The customer experience had to be top-notch. So I settled into the king-sized, ridiculously comfortable bed. It was so soft, so nice. But the biggest change wasn't my living situation. It was my mindset. Before, when I looked at Chloe, I saw a complication. Now, I couldn't find a single flaw. Look at that little nose, those little eyes. She was a spitting image of me. Look at that stubborn little temper. Crying 1 minute, perfectly fine the next. That was the Hayes family gene, passed down for generations. I started clumsily learning how to be a father. I learned to mix her formula, change her diapers, and read her bedtime stories. I was a mess most of the time. The formula was too hot, the diapers were on backward, and my storytelling was a disaster. I once had Snow White eating Little Red Riding Hood's grandmother. But Chloe never complained. The way she looked at me changed, too. I was no longer just uncle. I was the center of her universe, a source of comfort and trust. Every morning, the first thing I'd see was her little face by my bed. She'd pat my cheek with her small hands and say in her sweet voice, "Daddy, wake up." In those moments, my heart would just melt. To hell with retirement. To hell with being a slacker. Ethan Hayes would work my fingers to the bone for my baby girl. Victoria watched me change, and the ice in her eyes began to thaw day by day. Our conversations were no longer limited to monosyllabic grunts. She started asking my opinion on which formula to buy, sharing funny stories from the office, and sometimes when I was cooking, she would just stand in the kitchen doorway, watching me quietly. A strange, unspoken understanding grew between us. We were like a real couple. This calm, warm life created an illusion, as if we were just a normal family of three. But the storm is always brewing beneath a calm surface. One day, Victoria took a call, and her face went pale. That bastard, Dylan Vance. He leaked the story to the press. She hung up, her voice trembling slightly. Dylan Vance, the heir to the Vance fortune, Sterling Corp's biggest rival. He was also one of Victoria's most obsessive suitors who, after being rejected, had turned his affection into a bitter vendetta. He paid off a few tabloids. They're running stories about you having a child out of wedlock, living a scandalous life. They even included pictures of Chloe. Victoria showed me her phone. The headlines were sensational. Ice Queen CEO's secret lover and love child. Sterling heiress's pristine image shatters. The shocking truth, they had blurred Chloe's face, but anyone could tell it was us. The lobby at work and the street outside our house are swarming with reporters, Victoria said, rubbing her temples. The board of directors is in an uproar. A few of the old-timers are using this as an excuse to try and force my grandfather to step down. I looked at her pale face, and a surge of anger burned in my chest. Coming after us was one thing, but dragging a 2-year-old child into it? What kind of monster does that? Don't worry. I stood up, walked over to her, and for the first time, I took her cold hand in mine. I'm here. Victoria froze, looking up at me. Isn't this exactly what they want? They want a show, so let's give them one. A smirk formed on my lips, one that mirrored Victoria's own foxy smile. Sterling Corp's 30th anniversary gala is tomorrow night, right? Yes. Tell the press you'll be attending, with your husband and your daughter. A light sparked in Victoria's eyes. What are you planning? Dylan Vance wants to destroy us. I'm going to show him how we thrive in the spotlight, how we put on the greatest show of our lives. I squeezed her hand, my voice filled with a confidence I'd never felt before. Get ready, honey. Tomorrow night, your husband is going to save the day. Victoria looked at me, and for the very first time, she smiled like a young girl, free of all her burdens. Okay, the Sterling Corp 30th anniversary gala was the event of the season. Every big name in the city's business world was there. The moment I appeared at the entrance to the ballroom, wearing a custom-tailored suit, with Victoria on one arm and Chloe, in a matching princess dress, in the other, the entire hall fell silent. Hundreds of eyes swiveled toward us like searchlights. I could feel their stares, curious, shocked, disdainful, and gleefully anticipating a disaster. I could hear their whispers. Is that him? The trophy husband? He cleans up nice, I guess. Can't believe he's that kind of guy. Victoria must have lost her mind, turning down Dylan Vance for this. Look at the kid. She's so big already. What a disgrace. Victoria's hand tightened in mine, her body tense. I leaned in and whispered in her ear, head up, shoulders back, smile. Remember, we're here to crash their party, not to apologize. She took a deep breath, nodded, and the Ice Queen mask slipped back into place. I held Chloe and walked in with my head held high. The crowd parted before us like the Red Sea. We were the new, exotic animals at the zoo, and everyone was gathered around the enclosure. Victoria, there you are. A man with slicked back hair and a smug grin sauntered over, a glass of champagne in his hand. It was the architect of our misery, Dylan Vance. He didn't even glance at me, his eyes greedily roaming over Victoria. My, you look a little worn out. Are the rumors getting to you? I told you to stay away from this deadbeat, but you wouldn't listen. And now look, your reputation is in tatters. He put on a disgusting show of false concern. My business is none of your concern, Dylan, Victoria said icily. I'm just looking out for you, he simpered. But I have to ask, Mr. Hayes here, how does it feel to find out you're a father out of the blue? He finally turned his attention to me. The entire hall's focus snapped back to me. They were all waiting for the show, waiting for the pathetic trophy husband to crumble under the pressure. I smiled. I handed Chloe to Victoria and took a microphone from a nearby waiter's tray. Testing 1, 2. I tapped the mic and cleared my throat. Ladies and gentlemen, friends, good evening. I'd like to take this opportunity to clarify a few things. My name is Ethan Hayes, Victoria Sterling's legal husband. My voice boomed through the speakers, silencing the entire room. Everyone, including a smirking Dylan Vance, was listening. First, the rumors about my wife having a child out of wedlock are complete nonsense. We were married 3 years ago. We're both private people, so we chose not to make a public announcement. If you don't believe me, feel free to check the public records tomorrow morning. A wave of murmurs swept through the crowd. Married for 3 years. That meant the child wasn't illegitimate at all. Dylan's face twitched. I ignored him and continued. Second, regarding the rumors about me being a trophy husband, well, I'll admit there's some truth to that. Another wave of murmurs. Who admits to something like that? My wife is brilliant. She's capable. She's successful. So what if I live off her money? I puffed out my chest proudly. It just means I have great taste in women. All of you are just jealous. A snort of laughter broke the tension, followed by a ripple of chuckles across the room. Even Victoria's lips curved into a slight smile. Dylan's face was now as black as thunder. And finally, I paused, my gaze landing on Dylan, my smile turning to ice. And this is the most important point. I don't care who you are or what your family name is. But if you ever dare to use my daughter to spread lies again, if you ever harass my family. I grabbed an unopened bottle of champagne from a nearby table. In a collective gasp from the crowd, I crushed it with one hand. Glass shards flew, and champagne drenched my hand. I shook off the liquid, and with a hand still embedded with glittering fragments of glass, I pointed at the pale-faced Dylan Vance. I promise you, your fate will be 10,000 times worse than this bottle's. Dead silence. Everyone was stunned into submission. They looked at me not with scorn or ridicule, but with fear. I dropped the mic and took Chloe back from Victoria. The little girl wasn't scared at all. In fact, she was clapping her hands excitedly. Daddy, you're so cool. I kissed her cheek, took Victoria's hand, and walked out of the ballroom under the stunned gaze of every person in the room. Wait, a clear, female voice called out from the entrance. I turned. Standing, there was a woman who looked exactly like Victoria. She wore a long white dress, her hair flowing over her shoulders. She had a gentle, almost timid air about her, a vulnerability that made you want to protect her. A complete opposite of Victoria's sharp, cold competence. She looked at me, or rather, at Chloe in my arms, and her eyes instantly welled up with tears. Chloe, she whispered, her voice trembling as she reached out a hand toward us. My brain exploded. Veronica, the mother of my child, was back. The atmosphere in the Sterling living room was thick enough to cut with a knife. Me, Victoria, and a woman who called herself Veronica sat in a tense triangle. Maria had taken Chloe to her room to sleep. Veronica's eyes hadn't left me since she walked through the door. Her gaze was so complex it made my skin crawl. It was a mixture of guilt, longing, excitement, and a hint of adoration that I couldn't decipher. Hi, I said, breaking the silence, feeling incredibly awkward. Hi, Veronica stammered, a blush creeping up her cheeks. Ethan, I'm so sorry. And thank you. Thank me for what? Thank you for taking such good care of Chloe. As she said it, tears streamed down her face, a sorrowful sight that made my inside squirm. I can't handle crying women. I looked at Victoria for help. She was stone-faced, sipping a glass of water, acting as if the drama unfolding had nothing to do with her. Classic, passing the buck like a pro. Hey, don't cry, I said, fumbling to hand her a tissue. It's all in the past. The important thing is that you're healthy now. I know. Veronica dabbed at her eyes, but her gaze remained locked on me. These past 2 years, have you been okay? I've been great. Well-fed, well-rested, I said honestly. A shadow passed over Veronica's eyes. Has Victoria been good to you? Oh yeah, the best. I nodded vigorously. She's the most amazing woman I've ever met. A queen in the boardroom, a master in the... Well, I do the cooking. But anyway, she's perfect. I laid the praise on thick. My 30 million was still in her hands. After all, I had to keep the client happy. Victoria, hearing my words, paused with the glass halfway to her lips, the tips of her ears turning a faint pink. Veronica watched our strange interaction, her expression growing even more complicated. Ethan, I came back because I want to... She bit her lip, as if steeling herself. I want to take Chloe with me. And I want to compensate you. Here it was, the moment of truth. That familiar ache returned to my chest. You don't need to compensate me. I forced the words out, trying to sound calm. Chloe is your daughter. It's only right that you take her. No, she's your daughter too, Veronica said urgently. I would never stop you from seeing her. And I can give you money, more than my sister offered. I frowned. Why did everyone think they could just throw money at me? Did I look like the kind of person who could be bought? Yes, but this was different. I don't need money, I said, shaking my head. I only have one condition. Anything. Let me have a few more days with Chloe. The words felt like sandpaper in my throat. Veronica stared. Then her eyes welled up again. Yes, of course. Victoria, who had been silent this whole time, finally spoke. Veronica, you just got back. You must be tired. Why don't you go rest in the guest room? We could talk about this tomorrow. Her tone was colder than usual. Veronica looked at her, then at me, and finally nodded, letting Maria lead her to the guest room. Now it was just me and Victoria. Are you really going to be okay with it? She asked softly. Why wouldn't I be? I shrugged, feigning nonchalance. She was never really mine to begin with. Getting to have a daughter as cute as her for 2 years, rent-free? I'd say I made out like a bandit. I sounded carefree, but my heart felt like it had been hollowed out. Besides, there's still the 30 million, I added, forcing a smile. With that kind of cash, my retirement plan is back on track. I'll find a beach, kick back, and live the dream. What could be better? Victoria just looked at me, her expression unreadable. That night, I couldn't sleep. I tossed and turned in that huge, soft bed, my mind filled with images of Chloe. The first time she called me daddy. The way she proudly presented me with her scribbled drawings. The way she'd hug my neck and leave a slobbery kiss on my cheek. I realized, somewhere along the way, that little girl had become an inseparable part of my life. The next day, the bizarre atmosphere continued. At the breakfast table, Veronica kept piling food onto my plate, asking if I was warm enough, if I'd slept well. Her attentiveness was terrifying. Victoria, meanwhile, said nothing. She just silently peeled shrimp for Chloe, occasionally placing one in my bowl as well. My plate was a monument to the affections of 2 identical women. I was on the verge of an anxiety-induced ulcer. Chloe looked from the mommy on her left to the mommy on her right, her little face a mask of confusion. Mommy, 2 mommies. Her innocent question plunged the room into a frozen silence. Veronica's face went pale. Victoria's hands stopped moving. My scalp tingling. I quickly tried to smooth things over. Chloe, you're so smart. This is mommy, and this is... Auntie, I said, pointing to Veronica. Auntie. Chloe tilted her head. Yep, Auntie is mommy's twin sister, so they look exactly the same. The explanation sounded ridiculous even to my own ears. The next few days were a special kind of hell. Veronica tried to win me over with gifts, designer clothes, expensive watches. She even offered to buy me a sports car. Her objective was clear. Use money to compensate me for my service and, in the process, by the loyalty of her baby daddy. Victoria remained as cool as ever, but her actions spoke louder. She would quietly iron my new clothes, bring me a plate of fruit while I played video games, and hand me a towel when I was sweating after playing with Chloe. One was fire, the other was ice. One used material wealth, the other used subtle acts of care. I was caught in the middle, slowly being torn apart. This wasn't fatherhood. It was a trial by fire. Finally, the night before Veronica was scheduled to leave with Chloe, she asked to speak with me on the balcony. "Ethan, I'm leaving with Chloe tomorrow," she said, her eyes red-rimmed. "I know." I nodded, a lump forming in my throat. Can I ask you a question?" "Go ahead." "These past 2 years, you and my sister, did you too?" She trailed off. I knew exactly what she was asking. "We were completely platonic," I said firmly. "I was in the guest room. She was in the master. It was a business arrangement." Veronica let out a breath of relief. But then her expression shifted to one of hopeful anticipation. "And what about me? How do you feel about me?" She stared at me, her eyes filled with a girlish, shy hope. I was floored. What was this now? A confession? Before I could figure out how to navigate this minefield, the balcony door slid open. Victoria stood there, her face a mask of frost. "Veronica, I need to talk to you." And Ethan, together. Her voice was so cold it could have frozen lava. My stomach dropped. It was happening. The final showdown. In the study, the three of us once again formed our stable, terrifying triangle. This time, the tension was even heavier. "I'm laying my cards on the table," Victoria said. She sat in the main chair, hands clasped, looking like a judge about to deliver a verdict. "Ethan, Chloe is your daughter, but she is not my sister's child." The last frayed string in my brain finally snapped. Not Veronica's? Then whose could she be? Unless. My head whipped toward Victoria, a wild, impossible idea taking root in my mind. Veronica was just as stunned. "Victoria, what are you talking about?" Victoria ignored her, her eyes locked on me. She spoke each word with deliberate force. "Chloe is my daughter, and your daughter. 2 years ago, at the Velvet Rope, the person you were with. It wasn't my sister. It was me." Boom! A bolt of lightning struck the top of my head, frying every circuit in my brain. Her. How could it be her? The untouchable Ice Queen CEO? The woman who looked at me, the trophy husband, with nothing but disdain? Impossible. I cried out. That night, you clearly. Clearly what? Disappeared the next morning, leaving only a butler and a contract. Victoria gave a bitter laugh. "Because I was afraid to face you. I was panicked and I didn't know what to do. All my life, I was taught to be rational, to be calm, to never make a mistake. But that night, I made the biggest mistake of my life." Her eyes were red, her voice trembling. "Then, I found I was pregnant. My first thought was to get rid of it, to pretend it never happened. But I couldn't. It was my child. And your child. So you invented a twin sister to lie to me?" I felt like my entire reality was being rebuilt from the ground up. "Yes, Victoria Nadif." I didn't know how to explain it. I was afraid you'd think I was some easy woman. Afraid you'd hate me. And most of all, afraid you wouldn't take responsibility. So, I designed this contract marriage. I thought that with 2 years, you would slowly get used to Chloe's presence, that you would grow to love her. That way, when you finally learned the truth, you wouldn't abandon us. My mouth hung open. I didn't know how to process any of this. This woman, how did her brain even work? To get me to accept a child, she wrote, directed, and starred in a Hollywood-level drama. She even fabricated a twin sister out of thin air. I looked over at Veronica. She was in a state of shock, her mouth open wide enough to fit a baseball. "Wait, hold on." Veronica finally found her voice. "Victoria, are you saying that I'm not me?" Victoria looked at her, her eyes full of apology. "Veronica, I am sorry. I used you. You are not my sister, Veronica Sterling. You are." Victoria took a deep breath and delivered a truth that nearly made me pass out on the spot. "You are my second personality." "Second personality?" "Veronica," and I shouted in unison. My voice was filled with shock. Hers was filled with utter confusion. "Yes." Victoria nodded, a look of pain on her face. "When I was a child, I was in an accident. I was kidnapped. After that, I developed a dissociative identity. She's you, Veronica. You represent all of my repressed emotions. My vulnerability, my fear, my desire to be loved. While I, Victoria, am responsible for being strong, rational, and for protecting you. We share a body, but our memories are not always linked. Most of the time, I'm in control. You only come out when I'm under extreme stress or when I let my guard down. Victoria looked at Veronica, her expression softening. 2 years ago, the company was in crisis. I was on the verge of a breakdown. That night, I went to the bar to drink, and then you appeared. It was you who met a similarly heartbroken Ethan. It was you who was drawn to something in him. And it was you who spent that night with him. When I woke up the next morning, I was in a strange hotel with a strange man beside me. I was terrified. I ran. My only memories of that night are the fragmented pieces you left behind for me. My brain had officially shut down. This wasn't a soap opera anymore. This was a psychological thriller. My wife didn't just have a twin sister. The twin sister was her alter ego, and her alter ego had a baby with me. Could my life get any more absurd? Then who am I? Veronica asked, pointing at herself, her eyes vacant. You are me, and I am you. We are one, Victoria said, standing and gently embracing her. I'm sorry for making you live a lie. I created the twin sister story partly to deceive Ethan, but also to give you an identity, a way to exist in the world. Veronica's body trembled. She closed her eyes, tears silently streaming down her face. A few moments later, she opened them again. Her expression had changed. The timid vulnerability was gone, replaced by a cool rationality that was identical to Victoria's. They had integrated. She looked at me, a complex smile on her face. Hello, Ethan. Let's start over. My name is Victoria Sterling, your legal wife and the mother of your daughter. I looked at the woman before me. It was the same face, but her entire aura had shifted. She had Victoria's coolness, but also Veronica's warmth, like a glacier that had begun to melt in the sun. So, I managed to speak. The whole time, there was no twin sister, no overseas treatment. It was all you, all of you, just a story to fool me. Yes. She nodded, her face full of remorse. I'm sorry. What could I say? What could I do? I felt like a clown who had been played for the ultimate fool. All the shock, the anger, the confusion. It all dissolved into one long, weary sigh. I gave up. I completely and utterly surrendered. I looked at her, a laugh bubbling up, caught somewhere between hysteria and amusement. Victoria, you're something else. I gave her a thumbs up. You really went to incredible lengths to make me a dad. She smiled sheepishly, like a child caught with her hand in the cookie jar. So, are you still angry with me? Angry? I shook my head. Why would I be angry? I got a beautiful wife and an adorable daughter out of a deal. I should be thanking you. I paused and my tone shifted. However, the fee for emotional distress is going up. 30 million isn't going to cut it. I held up 5 fingers. We're talking at least this much in damages. Victoria stared at me, then burst out laughing. It was the first time I had ever seen her laugh, so freely, so genuinely. Deal. She walked over to me, stood on her tiptoes, and gave me a soft, quick kiss. It's all yours. My company, my money, me and our daughter. From now on, it's all yours. I felt the soft touch on my lips, heard her impossibly bold and sweet declaration. My lazy, unambitious heart, in that moment, completely melted. To hell with retirement. To hell with being a slacker. From this day forward, Ethan Hayes, was going to be a good husband and a good father. Of course, I was still going to be a trophy husband. And I was going to be the best damn trophy husband the world had ever seen. After the great unveiling, the atmosphere in our home became unbelievably peaceful. Victoria was no longer an impenetrable fortress of ice. She started smiling at me, teasing me. Sometimes when I was playing video games, she would wrap her arms around me from behind, rest her chin on my shoulder, and just watch me play. Her gaming skills were non-existent, of course. Even I, a permanent resident of the Bronze League, could see that. But I didn't mind. As for that idiot Dylan Vance, after the champagne bottle incident at the gala, he completely backed off. Victoria later told me that my little stunt had terrified his family. They launched a full investigation into my background and came up with nothing. A kid from a middle-class family with a record as clean as a freshly wiped slate. That scared them even more. From their perspective, for nobody to openly challenge the Vance family and possess such a unique skill set, he had to have some incredibly powerful backer hiding in the shadows. So, not only did the Van Cess retract all the negative press, but Dylan's father personally dragged him to our house to offer a formal apology. It was incredibly satisfying. It taught me that sometimes, to deal with bullies, you just have to be more unreasonable than they are. With the crisis averted, my mission was complete. According to our new contract, I not only got the $30 million, but also the additional $50 million in emotional distress compensation Victoria had promised. Overnight, I became a man with $80 million to his name. I could finally retire in any style I wanted. I could lie down, sit up, or do a handstand on a pile of cash for the rest of my life. But I wasn't happy. Every morning, Chloe would still crawl into our bed and pat my face to wake me up. Every night, Victoria would still bring me a warm glass of milk and tell me to go to sleep early. We lived like a real family. We ate together, went for walks, watched TV. No one mentioned the divorce. No one mentioned the money. Until one day, I was staring at the long string of zeros in my bank account, and a sense of panic washed over me. I pulled Victoria into the study. "So, are we still getting a divorce?" I asked tentatively. Victoria was reading a document. She looked up, a playful smile on her lips. "What? Is 80 million not enough?" No, it's more than enough," I said, waving my hands. "I was just asking." "Do you want a divorce?" she asked. I fell silent. Did I? I didn't know. Half of my brain was picturing a beach in Hawaii, the sun on my face. The other half was picturing Chloe's smiling face and Victoria's eyes, which had grown warmer and warmer each day. "I'll give you two options," Victoria said, putting down her papers and walking over to me. "A. Take your $80 million and leave. Go live the retired life you always wanted. I promise I will never bother you again." My heart skipped a beat. "B," she paused, looking directly into my eyes. "Stay. The money is still yours, but you have to be mine. Be Chloe's real father and my real husband." She held out her hand. "Choose, Ethan." I looked at her. In her eyes, I saw hope, anxiety, and a vulnerability she rarely showed. I suddenly understood. This powerful CEO, this master storyteller who had orchestrated our entire lives, was just as clueless and scared when it came to love as I was. She was afraid of being rejected, afraid of being hurt again. I smiled. I didn't take her hand. Instead, I stepped forward and pulled her into a tight hug. "Victoria, are you an idiot?" I whispered in her ear. "A beautiful wife, an amazing daughter, $80 million, and I don't have to work. Isn't that the absolute pinnacle of retirement? I choose B. I'm not going anywhere." I felt her body relax in my arms. Then, with all her strength, she hugged me back. Later, I asked Victoria, "Your other personality, Veronica, will she ever come back?" Victoria, nestled in my arms, thought for a moment. "I don't know. My therapist says she'll always be a part of me. But as long as I'm strong and happy, she won't need to come out and take control. What if she does come out and starts throwing herself at me again?" I joked. "Then you'll just have to deal with it," she said, pinching my side. "You're the one who got involved with US in the first place." I roared with laughter. Our life finally settled into a comfortable domestic rhythm. We argued about what to have for dinner. We bickered over which preschool to enroll Chloe in. And on lazy weekend afternoons, we do nothing at all three of us piled on the sofa, watching cartoons for hours. The Sterling elders, though they grumbled about us doing things backward, couldn't hide their beaming smiles. Victoria's grandfather, especially, paraded his great-granddaughter Chloe around everywhere, boasting that he knew from day one that I, Ethan Hayes, was destined for greatness. My dream of a solo retirement had become a family retirement. And even though my wife sometimes dragged me to the office to act as her arm candy, and my daughter roped me into playing My Little Pony for hours on end, looking at their smiling faces, I thought this lack of freedom was pretty great. One night, after putting Chloe to bed, I walked back into our room. Victoria was lying on the bed with a face mask on, reading a book. She saw me and beckoned me over. "Come here." I walked over, and she pulled another file folder from under her pillow. My heart jumped. What is it now? Please don't be another world-shattering secret. My heart can't take it. Victoria handed me the folder with a sly grin. "See for yourself." I took it suspiciously. Prenuptial asset transfer agreement. I opened it. In clear, legal terms, It stated that Victoria Sterling was willingly and unconditionally transferring 30% of her shares in Sterling Corp to her legal husband, Ethan Hayes. My hand shook so badly the agreement almost fell to the floor. 30% of Sterling Corp. How much was that even worth? 80 million was probably a rounding error next to this. What were you doing? I stammered, giving you a sense of security. Victoria peeled off her face mask, revealing her flawless skin. I was afraid you might get restless and try to run off again. So, I'm using my entire family fortune to chain you to me. She leaned in close, her breath warm against my ear. Mr. Hayes, now you can never, ever leave me. I looked down at the agreement in my hand, then at the woman smiling like a sly fox before me. What else was there to say? I scooped her up and tossed her onto the bed. Victoria Sterling, you're forcing me to be ambitious. Good. I'm tired of being the only one running things anyway. The moonlight streamed gently through the window. My life of leisure, it seemed, was officially over, but a new, far more exciting life was just beginning. End.